rarely crosses. Children are almost never targets. Civilians are ignored unless they become necessary casualties. It's not morality, it's calculation. But I have to wonder, is it Diana Burnwood, his handler, who's kept that restraint in check? Or is there something buried deep within him? Something even he doesn't fully understand? Of course, that doesn't change the reality. He remains an assassin. And if the mission demands it, if a child were truly a necessary collateral, he would pull the trigger, without hesitation. That's what makes him terrifying. And that's what makes him a target of surveillance. He is a ghost, a machine, a weapon perfected over decades of conditioning. The question isn't whether he'll succeed. The question is, will you even see him coming?
Years ago, before I knew Edison was a thing, I probably would have said GOAT is a lot of fun, and it still is, but it's just different, and a lot of people don't really like how slow GOAT format can be. I think Edison really strikes like
GOAT is way too slow
for me, but GOAT format's still a lot of fun. I think it's more like nostalgia than anything for me, to be honest. But really, the reason I wanted to make this video was
most fun during the late game where you banish lights and darks and do a lot.
On my
that takes too long, like turn 15 to 20.
And the surgeries and all that stuff. I didn't think I was going to even be able to attend
Why
this
even
event,
bother?
For one reason or another.
You can get that kind of excitement in other card games, and said other card games provide way more on a turn-to-turn basis.
And we just got to shoot the shit for a weekend. And
like Pokemon, for example, you don't do much, but there's a lot going on in the few things that you do. A lot of brain power, a lot of thinking, a lot of decision making.
Who were at the event or even watching and supporting me.
In Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like, which card, which monster do I normal summon before passing on to the opponent?
Anything along those lines. We've really fostered an awesome fucking.
That was GOAT format, and people said that was fun.
So enough of that. You guys are here to hear me completely crash and burn when it comes to GOAT format. So let's go ahead.
They're actually not normal summon. Usually it's just set and pass.
So there's a lot to talk about here.
Exhilarating. And then the opponent's like, set down monster. So dangerous, so scary, whatever could it be? I am also just gonna set a monster and pass.
The current variants of it. If you look at like older ones, they were playing some different stuff. I'm sure maybe there might be a couple card differences like by 2025 standards, but last year I did play Chaos Turbo in the Ultimate Time Wizard. I basically almost played this exact list. It's very similar. So I figured this is like a good place to start. So this is the ultimate boogeyman of the format. If you're playing this format, if you're not playing this deck, you need to find a way to beat this deck because this deck is like S tier, like tier 0, like the best thing you could be doing. So you're probably wondering then, okay, why am I playing Warrior, right? Well, Warrior is like the second best deck in the format in the sense that it's sort of like the anti-meta to Chaos Turbo. There's a lot of cards in this deck that are really strong into the Chaos Turbo matchup, and if you can get in fast and aggressive and or you're able to like really just maximize what this deck is trying to do against Chaos Turbo, then you're going to have a pretty decent shot at doing quite well. Now, this is obviously assuming you're going to a field that's going to be like 90% Chaos Turbo, right? Because we're going to get into it. This deck has a piss poor matchup when it comes to control, like typical GOAT control. You think about, oh, I want to play GOAT format with my scapegoats and like my metamorphosis and stuff. This deck completely gets shit on by that deck, and so we'll talk about that later when we get into the matchups. But when it comes to like looking at the Chaos Turbo deck, the all-star of
Abyss Dweller doesn't do much against Malice.
I've never seen Blade Knight before. It gains 400.
It doesn't do much against Ryzeal either.
It's actually very relevant.
It still should be banned though.
More importantly, I would say, if you have control no other monsters, the effects of flip monsters destroyed by battle with this card are negated. Looking at the boogeyman of the format in Chaos Turbo, look how many flip effects this deck plays. It plays Gravekeeper Spy, which unfortunately doesn't work with Blade Knight because it has 2,000 defense. So you're basically never getting over Spy with this, which sucks. But it negates Magician of Faith. It negates Night Assailant. It negates other things as well, like Dekoichi. So there's a lot of things that Blade Knight just blanks, essentially, because one of the other best cards in the format is Nobleman of Crossout. So Nobleman of Crossout just targets face-down monster on the field and destroys it, and then banishes all copy out of both players' decks. So Chaos Turbo plays a lot of flips, and so you're trying to play like this sort of anti-flip deck, but then also like sort of this hand destruction game to be able to just really just get all of their cards out of their hand, because Chaos Turbo is very efficient at just building resources, and they're going to be trying to just bide their time until they get into a position where they can just use Chaos Sorcerer and BLS to like finish you off. But for the most part, the deck is designed to just whittle down the resources as the game progresses. The longer the game goes, the more favored Chaos Turbo is. The Turbo is kind of like a misnomer. It's Turbo because of how fast the deck plays relative to like other decks in the format. Like a deck like this is going to be like, you know, Blade Knight set 4 pass, which is, you know, kind of a running joke in the community that that's how this deck plays. But Chaos Turbo can go like, okay, turn 1 Thunder Dragon, get 2 Thunder Dragons, and then I can like do upstarts. It's very like a modern deck in GOAT format, if that makes sense. So looking at our deck here, what tools do we have to dispose of this? So Blade Knight's the all-star here. Being light's very relevant because we are playing our own Chaos Monster and BLS. Some Warrior decks will choose to play Chaos Sorcerer as well, but just having BLS is, I think, enough in my opinion. I think you're not really running enough of it. BLS is just like, you're obviously going to want to play BLS, but Sork is like debatable as to whether or not you want to include it because it can be bricky at times. Even BLS for me, this event was bricky. I think I only summoned BLS once, and more often than not, it was actually like rotting in my hand because I couldn't get myself into a situation where I had light dark to bring it out, which is very frustrating. So I couldn't imagine how much worse it would have been with Chaos Sorcerer. So Blade Knight's the heart and soul of the deck. It's also a warrior because Rhoda is at 2 in this format, which is really cool. And so we're trying to play a sort of warrior good stuff toolbox, which funny enough is what I played back in the day, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to try this deck out as well. You might be wondering, why didn't I actually play Chaos Turbo? Well, the reason for that is with all my like health diagnosis and treatments and all that stuff, I wasn't going to be able to commit the time to play the mirror or learn the mirror enough. I did a decent amount last time we played this event, but I wanted to play something that's a lot more simplified, because if I ran into a matchup where I played the mirror with Chaos Turbo, that is a very skillful matchup unless Trinity just sort of dominates over that matchup. And so if I went up against like some of the gods of GOAT playing the Chaos Turbo mirror, I was probably going to lose just because it's a very skill-intensive matchup. And so as a result of that, I decided to play a deck that's a lot more linear in its game plan and can really end the games quickly. Warrior, if you play Warrior, your games will go very fast a lot of the time, whether you win very quickly or you lose very quickly. Sometimes you can get into a grind game, but more often than not, the Warrior matchups go very fast. And then my thinking was, in that case, if I either 2-0 or like, you know, get 0-2'd or whatever, then I can help Gage in the Edison, and we're kind of like 2-on-1ing our Edison opponent. Even though I was letting him do his thing for the most part, I could sort of just like look over and just see if there's things that, you know, he might be missing or anything like that. So that was the theory here. Even though I say this deck is linear, there's still a lot to it, and I think it's more about the nuance of like when you deploy your threats, necessarily than when it comes to, you know, you have way more options when it comes to a deck like Chaos Turbo. You need to be very specific and intentful with like how you're going to like proceed with like what you're going to like summon first. Like if you have a hand of a couple guys, which one do you want to throw out first to be able to like sort of like bait for things and then stick like your more like high priority threats later. And I think that's where a lot of the skill with this deck comes in. So Blade Knight, like I said, heart and soul. And since we're playing Rhoda, we are on the warrior package here. So let's go ahead and just show off some of the other warriors. DD Warrior Lady's limited. She's fantastic. She's really good at clearing out like Gravekeeper spies, just bigger threats that are harder to get rid of. And she's a warrior, so you can search her, so that's great. Dawn Zalug is fantastic. Dawn is basically just more copies of Spirit Reaper, but we'll get to that a little bit later. This deck was heavily inspired by the first place list from last Ultimate Time Wizard, so you can go watch that video too if you want some more insight. But Dawn is fantastic. If you've never seen it before, it's basically Spirit Reaper. When it does battle damage, it discards a random card out of their hand, or you can mill them for 2, which you're never doing. But it's great because it's a tutorable Spirit Reaper, and his stats are actually pretty decent. And this guy put in a lot of work this weekend. One of the Warriors' game plans is you're trying to simplify the board state so that like your opponent is in like a very low, you and your opponent, to be honest, are in very low resource states. And by consequence of that, your cards are better than your opponent's when you're at low resources. You should be able to dominate the game from that position, especially because you're playing stuff like Triple Song and Judgment and the like. So you really just want to simplify the game as fast as possible, and then from there you should be able to win over the course of a couple games. Exile, of course, is also a nice warrior too. This is a good way to deal with flip monsters as well. This is one of the ways to deal with a set Gravekeeper Spy, which is one of the best cards in the format, and really just like one of the biggest problems this deck has is how to deal with Gravekeeper Spy. So Exile, of course, is great. We have Mystic Sword number 2, which is also fantastic at disposing of set Gravekeeper Spies. Again, Blade Knight can't get through them because even with the power boost, it just matches Gravekeeper Spy's defense. But Mystic Sword number 2, man, this guy put in fucking work this weekend. Holy shit. There were some people who were watching our round 6 6, and I had my opponent on a read that they had a set Spy, and I top deck Mystic Swordsman level 2, and it was just, man, everyone was just like, holy shit, that was like the best Mystic Swordsman level 2 of all time. But anyway, then we have Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke as well. This is great because this deals with face-up Gravekeeper Spy. So let's say you have like a Blade Knight, you attack into a Spy. Spy's going to flip and special summon out another copy of Spy, but Sasuke's effect is at the start of the damage step. If it controls, if it attacks a face-up defense position monster, destroy that monster. So it's sort of like, you know, Mystic Swordsman level 2, but for face-up already. And so this is a great way to just get in. It's also a light as well, which helps for your chaos count. That's very important. That's it for the warrior package, though. So this is everything you can search with Rhoda, except for what's in the side deck. We'll get to that a little bit later. And then you have just the other good stuff cards. Obviously, BLS, we have a decent light and dark count, so it's like not too difficult to summon this card, but obviously your opponents can have their ways with like their chaos sorcerers and things like that to banish your stuff to try to keep you off chaos, because everyone knows everyone's playing BLS for the most part. So just a huge bomb, and if you can summon him, you're typically going to be winning the game. There are some instances though where you want to like special summon him in defense position and just use him as like a floodgate where you're just banishing your opponent's sets. BLS can actually banish set face down monsters where Chaos Sorcerer cannot. So if you have the read, your opponent's on like a set Magician of Faith or a Gravekeeper Spy or something you do not want to flip up, and you do not have access to like Mystic Swordsman level 2 or Knock or anything like that, BLS can actually get the job done in that regard as well. So that's something you should not overlook in using this card. A lot of people want to slam it when they're going to win the game, and typically that's the case, but being able to use it sort of like more defensively is also something that is pretty good in some situations. Breaker, my
I just realized that was a stupid
is legal
mistake.
in this game, and which is wonderful. Fantastic card. Like, you're going to be playing this no matter what, just because it gets so much value. It's a +1 that keeps itself on the field. The Chaos Turbo deck does play stuff like Jar of Greed and Regeki Break, so they do have chainables to this, which can be frustrating at times. You have to be very intentful with your Breaker, like when you do want to actually pop stuff. But there are some annoying things in the format, such as Snatch Steal, which Breaker can be actually used to like destroy, which then will allow you to get control of your monster again. We have Call the Haunted and Premature Burial in this format as well, and so as a result of that, you're then able to like pop those types of things, which will then in turn turn Breaker into actual removal. Breaker has a ton of good hits in this format, and so every deck's going to be playing it for the most part because the stat line is crazy, the effect is crazy, it's a dark, like it's all upside. Breaker was banned at one point, for people who don't know. Breaker's nuts. And then we're playing Kaiku, so even though Kaiku's not a warrior, I mentioned earlier how we're sort of playing
I thought he remained comfy unlimited, but
Kaiku fits the build
that makes a lot of sense.
This role. It's 1800, which is very big. You want to have monsters that are typically just high statted, because we're trying to just have better monsters generally than our opponent, in the sense that their bodies are bigger, right? So we have that going for it. 1800 is great for that. And then the fact that not only if it gets in and does battle damage, it can banish stuff out of our opponent's graveyard, which is fantastic for Chaos Turbo, because with stuff like Thunder Dragons, a way for them to easily build up light monsters in the graveyard. If you banish their Thunder Dragons, now they're no longer able to get to Chaos, and you've sort of locked their win condition out. But notably, while Kaiku's up, your opponent cannot banish cards from either graveyard. So even just establishing Kaiku as a sort of like pseudo floodgate is still really good, even if it can't get in. Like, let's say they have a set Spy. If you have Kaiku up and they have the ability to go for Chaos, they need to clear Kaiku before they can actually go for those plays. So you can sort of use it as a way to slow the game down if you absolutely have to. A cool play you can do is like during your opponent's turn, you can like Call the Haunted back up the Kaiku, like if they find a way to clear it. So that way that floodgate effect is still sort of in effect, and then it's going to really stifle their plays if they're on like a very chaos heavy hand. So Kaiku is an all-star in a deck like this. And then Spirit Reaper's in here as well. We've got 2 copies of this. This is basically just more copies of Don Zalug, but Spirit Reaper is really fantastic because it's able to, not only is it a dark, but it's also just able to like really help simplify the game, because Chaos Turbo is really going to be holding onto their power cards until they want to deploy them, right? So they want to hold the Sorks, the BLS, the Snatch Steal. They want all these cards for when they can get the maximum value out of them, and really just use that to sort of like push the game in their favor. And so by being hyper aggressive with a card like Spirit Reaper, you're going to be able to just rip more cards out of their hand, and then by consequence of that, you're going to simplify the game immensely, which then heavily favors you, because once you start getting those cards out of their hand, you start seeing them hit the graveyard, you're going to be in a fantastic spot, because they're not going to have like the best follow-up if you can hit those key cards. So having more cards to hit the hand is wonderful. It's also good just because it walls up as well. It's kind of weird because you don't really want to play stuff in defense position in this deck. One of the reasons this deck is good is because it's basically immune to Nobleman of Crossout for the most part, because everyone's playing this card because there's so many cards you want to hit with it, Gravekeeper Spy, Magician of Faith, etc. But Spirit Reaper is just just because you can just have this aggressive card that also can't be killed by battle. So it's really annoying for them to deal with it. I had some opponents just like have to use a Raigeki break on a Spirit Reaper, which already feels bad because it would be destroyed anyway because it has a targeting effect. But having to like minus to pop a Spirit Reaper when it's not even like doing that much damage just feels so awful. But I really like the extra aggression here with Spirit Reaper. It's a really good card. Also in the Warrior Mirror match, which has a lot of like aggression because you're playing a bunch of big guys, actually having Spirit Reaper set is nice because since it can't be killed by battle, it's like a pseudo Gravekeeper spy that can also just help you sort of like tip things in your favor because they may be holding on to their bombs if you're able to clear those out of the way. The last monster is Tribe Infecting Virus. This card was banned for quite some time, but it's legal in GOAT format. It's discard a card and then declare a type of monster. Destroy all face-up monsters of that type. This is very important because of Gravekeeper Spy specifically. You need just a very efficient way to deal with this. So if your opponent goes, flip Spy, summon Spy, or if you attack into it and they get one off of it, you can use the Tribe Infecting Virus just to pitch a card, and then that'll just destroy all of these because you don't really care about the fact that it's Spellcaster. That only interferes with Kaiju specifically, but being able to use it to clear up stuff like in the mirror match, if they have like a couple warriors out, then you can use that to blow them out there. If they have like Chaos Sork, Sork is also a spellcaster, so if the Chaos Turbo player, has like Spy Sork, that'll wipe everything, which is pretty sick. But also if you need to kill off like a BLS, it's just a really solid card. The stat line's great, and pretty much every deck of Go plays this as well. So pretty low monster count at 15. That may seem very few, but that's actually with intent, because if you're familiar with Edison format, you're trying to, I want to say that this deck, you're trying to like open 1 or 2 monsters and a bunch of back row, and that's like the best opening you can produce. But that's also the Achilles heel of this deck at times. If you open a hand of like all monsters or all back row and no threats, that's a big problem. And so for anyone who's familiar with Gladiator Beast in Edison, that deck also suffers from the same issue. So the monster count is very low as a result of that. And I will say a majority of the games that I lost in this event were because I drew a hand of like all monsters, and that was very frustrating because if you don't have any like defensive cards to like protect some of them or to be able to help like kind of put the board back at parity, it's a really rough time. And don't worry, we'll get into that when we get into the matchup specifically. So that's it for the monsters. The spells, we have the Trinity, we have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit over here. These are known as Trinity because, like, basically they're just, like, some of the most powerful cards ever printed, and obviously they're still banned in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But you get to play them in GOAT, and a lot of people, this is, like, one of the reasons why people hate GOAT format, because these cards are very, like, swingy and can just really tilt the game in someone's favor. I would say, for the most part, if you and your opponent both see an equal number of these cards across the course of a game, then you should probably both be in a good, the game should be relatively even, all things considered. Obviously with Chaos Turbo, they can get rid of stuff like Thunder Dragon with Graceful Charity, which basically turns it into a draw 3, which is disgusting, but it is what it is, right? And some people like this format because you have to play these cards, but these cards are very toxic, and I would say I saw them like a decent amount. There was one game I actually saw, I want to say Pot Duo, I think in like 2, if not 3 of the games in a single match, which was very gross, but that's neither here nor there. So these cards are all busted. Heavy Storm is a staple. Mind Control is actually in here at 3. This may look weird because we're not playing Synchros or Xyz, right? This is GOAT format. This is Boomer Yu-Gi-Oh! So you're probably wondering why this is here. This is a card that, because we said Chaos Turbo is such an important matchup to beat, that we're able to use this as essentially 3, 4, and 5 copies of Nobleman of Crossout. Now, it doesn't destroy the monster, but being able to take an opponent's Gravekeeper Spy, flip it up so that they don't get the activation is actually a huge swing, because that means they're going to have one less wall to be able to protect themselves with. In the best case scenario, if you Mind Control Magician of Faith to get back one of your powerful spells, or even like the Trinity, that's basically like game over. There's a lot of really neat applications for this card, even though you can't really do a lot with the actual monster itself. It's just worth it enough, and especially if you lose the die roll going up against Chaos Turbo specifically, you want something that can help tilt the game in your favor, because them going first really stifles your chances if they open even average. So having this as like more copies of Nobleman, just as a way to slow them down and sort of like help get the game back in your favor, is really powerful. And I was expecting a lot of Chaos Turbo. In retrospect, I'd probably only main deck 2 of this because I played 1 Chaos Turbo throughout the entire tournament, which is kind of nuts. But yeah, with the other decks in the format, Mind Control's really bad into the other decks, but it's really good against Chaos. So I think in retrospect, I'd maybe only play 2 of this, but you never know what you're going to encounter when you actually get down and sit across from your opponent, right? So 3 Mind Control, MST's obvious, Nobleman obviously is just one of the best cards as well. Premat's something you actually don't see in all lists, like you see in Chaos Turbo. They don't even play Premature Burial, which you think would be like an auto-include, but in Warrior it's good, it gives you an extra summon. There's not many ways to to special summon in GOAT format. It's pretty rare. So just being able to have another way to like bring back a Kaiku to be able to rip out stuff out of their graveyard, being able to bring back like Blade Knight just to be able to deal with flips, bring back Dawn to be able to get in for damage. You cannot bring back Spirit Reaper because it's considered targeted and then it like destroys itself, which is really fucking stupid, but like whatever, that's the way the game works. Pre-Mat and then as well as Call the Haunted are both fantastic for this reason. The double Rhoda, Snatch Steal is legal and is fucking nuts. This is a card that you really want to hold stuff like Mystical Space Typhoon and Dust Tornado for. If there's a way you lose games, it's because your opponent's holding Snatch and they're going to just yoink your monster and then summon theirs and just like go for a shit ton of damage. Snatch Steal is definitely one of the most powerful cards in this format, and one of the skill checks I will say is if you can play in such a way that you're able to ensure that you will not lose to Snatch Steal, because this is one of the cards that will lose you games that you should not have any right losing. And so ensuring you have that MS tier, that Dust Tornado, or that Solemn Judgment for Snatch Steal is imperative, I would say. So definitely want to hold like your cards for that if you absolutely can, because that can definitely come up and just bite you in the ass if you don't. So that's it for, oh, actually, no, I was going to say that's it for the spells. We saw Smashing Ground. This is definitely something you do not see very often, but I like it as another way to deal with Gravekeeper Spy specifically, because if they just have one Spy, I actually in one of my games had a situation where my opponent had 2 Spies and I had a really aggressive hand, so I went Smashing Ground 1 Spy, Ring of Destruction the other, and then they were wide open, and I'm pretty sure I got in with like Dawn. I don't know if I got in with Reaper too, but I at least got in with Donzalug, and that really tilted the game in my favor, and I think I won the game from that position. So I actually like the Smashing Ground, even though it's like not very common to be played. It's good at just dealing with like really big stuff. It kills like Chaos Orc, right? You know, BLS, things like that. But mainly it kills Spy, and that's I wanted like another card to deal with Spy, because Spy is being played in like almost everything, because it's just such a good card at walling off the aggression. There's not many like clean answers aside from like knock to it. So that's it for the spells. The traps, we kind of already talked about Call the Haunted. Dust Tornado being main deck is very important, because being able to hit stuff again like Snatch Steal for the mirror match when your opponent's playing stuff like Solemn Judgment, being able to hit those preemptively can be a huge swing, because whoever usually activates the last Judgment in the Warrior Mirror is like typically going to win. I had an instance where I had like Ring of Destruction, and then like he Judgmented, then I Judgmented, then he Judgmented that, and it was just game over as a result of that, and that was very funny. But yeah, you really want to just have Dust Tornado to simplify the game state. You can also do cool stuff like Dust Tornado your opponent's thing, and then set Solemn Judgment for your turn to like insulate your plays. So like that setting effect can actually be relevant. Don't forget that it has that. Just some basic stuff like Mirror Force. Ring of Destruction is legal in this format, which can actually force draws, which is very stupid, but it's 1-for-1 removal, and it's very strong as a result of that. The one Sakuretsu armor, I'll talk about this last. Triple Solemn Judgment. This is like one of the reasons to play Warriors, that you want to play Triple Judgment to, again, just simplify the board state, make sure your stuff like Dawn connects, like Kaiku connects, and just really just have that answer to everything your opponent has. There was one game where my opponent had Pot of Greed, and they weren't really doing anything, and I basically, you know, I was like, hold on, and he's like, are you going to Judgment Pot of Greed? And I'm like, I'm thinking about it, and I actually did it, because Judgment's, it's denying them a +1, so like it is sort of plussing you in a way, right? And he just kind of passed. I think he didn't really like do much else. Then I drew my Pot of Greed, and that resolved, and that was disgusting. That was a huge swing for me. Torrential, of course, as well. So the one sack, this is here because it's not terrible. It's like okay, like it's much better against Warrior than it is against Chaos Turbo, but Chaos Turbo still is going to attack you. I like the theory with this, because if they see you're playing one sack, they might think you're playing more, so they might actually respect it later on if they see it once. If you're going up against the Warrior Mirror, you're going to bring in the other sacks anyway, but if you're playing other decks, it's kind of like a mind game card. It's 1-for-1 removal. You're going to hit something with it more often than not, and I kind of like that theory of just like kind of like making your opponent fake themselves out, seeing only one copy of this, thinking that you have more. And it's like a fine card regardless, but some decks may not include any in the main deck, and they might just side the full 3. That's totally fine. So that's it for the main deck. Pretty solid, all things considered. We don't have to play an extra deck because we're not playing like Metamorphosis or like Cyberstein or anything. The side decks, I will say this is not optimal in the slightest. I meant to get Mystic Walks, which I have from the last Ultimate Time Wizard, but I could not find them to save my life. And Mystic Walk is a card, I will just go ahead and pull it up here if you've never seen it. You might have seen it if you're in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! For time rolls. Tribute a monster, select either its attack or defense and gain that many life points. It's the anti-burn card, and you want this for like your burn matchups like Panda Burn, Stall Burn, different things like that. And spoiler, that comes up, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. So for the side deck, this is not optimal. I just kind of threw together everything I could find for the most part, because I really wanted to have Mystic Walks and I couldn't find them, so I just like, okay, well, what else can we play? So Asura Priest, one of the biggest issues, like I said, is if you play actual control, and so a lot of the stuff in the side deck is actually for your control matchup specifically. Asura Priest is one of them. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, so it's really good at dealing with scapegoats specifically. It's also a light, which is relevant for chaos. The fact it's a spirit means it comes back to your hand, so it kind of like protects itself in a weird way, but it's also good against like decks playing recruiters like Mystic Tomato, Shining Angel, because there are like recruiter chaos decks. Recruiters are like somewhat common in GOAT, but not like extremely common, so that can come up. It's a fine card. I never sided it in because actually, I know I sided in the one control matchup that I did play. Kinetic Soldier got renamed to Cypher Soldier. It's Kinetic Soldier. This card is insane in the Warrior Mirror. I actually wasn't going to play this card because this was supposed to be my Mystic Walks, but this card came up because I ended up playing 2 Warrior Mirrors, and this card is insane in the Mirror match because you can just set this card, and if they attack into it and it's a Warrior, this card is 3,800 defense. So you take a shit ton of damage. Then next turn, if they don't have a way to protect it, like with a Sakuretsu armor or anything, you can put your Kinetic Soldier to attack, and it's 3,350, and it just clears everything that's a Warrior. This card is such a menace, and came up multiple times for reasons I didn't expect, and again, we'll get into that. Gravekeeper Spy is also in the sideboard. This may seem weird, but when you're playing against like the Warrior Mirror, having this as a wall to like protect yourself is actually like kind of good. So you kind of want to have spies in games 2 and 3 just to sort of like slow the game down a little bit and just kind of like build your resources to a position where you feel very comfortable. So that's pretty nice for that. Funny enough, another really like 5-head interaction with this is that you can side this in against like let's say Chaos Turbo or things. If you think your opponent's going to keep in Nobleman, which typically against Warrior you're not supposed to because the deck never sets anything. But if your opponent does keep in Nobleman, if they knock the spy that you played, their spies get banished from their deck. So that's a very fun interaction if you want like another way to kind of deal with Gravekeeper Spy. That can come up as a matter of fact. I found the triple King Tiger Wanghus as well. This card is just like backbreaking against control because all their stuff is so tiny and it deals with a lot of very annoying things. So these were in here just for specifically control or anything, just plays like a bunch of tiny stuff. One Zombira on the side. This is also for Warrior specifically. You can also side this in against Chaos because it's not the worst. Being 2100, it does clear Gravekeeper Spy, which is relevant. It does go down to 19 after it does that, but being able to clear one Spy is actually pretty good because then you might have a card like Ring or Smashing or something to deal with the other. That's totally okay. It's a Warrior, so you can search it with Rhoda, which is important. It's a Dark, so that means it's good for Chaos. And in the Warrior Mirror specifically, if you normal summon Zombira and pass, they have very few outs to a normal summon Zombira because usually like Sakuretsu armor is a way to deal with Zombira, but there's not many other like things in the deck like you look up here that can just deal with an attack position Zombira. It's like Exiled Force and DD Warrior Lady, right? So there are times where you can just do that and pass and they can't really do anything. It's really like obnoxious, but it's also kind of fun.
Pretend this face down card got negated.
This may seem weird, but against like the aggressive decks, which I played a lot of actually, Swords is good at just buying time. Again, it's a card that doesn't have like a lot of answers. Like there's obviously like MST, Dust Tornado, I guess Judgment if you want to do that. Breaker. There are things to out it, but against like Warrior or like the super aggro decks, if you can do something like Mystic Swords in level 2 or Donzalug or something and back it up with Swords, it puts them in a really awkward position. Kaiku's another good one as well. Just because like they can't attack over the thing, but they also can't in the instance of like Mystic Swords.
I think your opponent is to blame for this sometimes.
And so
happening.
It's really awkward for them to kind of
I believe he has like a thing that alongside the no destruction, there's also no targeting,
so
maybe.
It puts them in this like really difficult bind that I really like what this card does.
God, I hate how much text the Drytrons have.
Like that because it's like not that good. But against the hyper aggressive decks, it's pretty strong. And then for traps, the third Dust Tornado for the matchups where it's necessary, like Warrior or just like anything that plays a lot of background.
No,
more Sakuretsu
it's only destruction.
Specifically, or
yeah, it's just a bug, but nobody's ever bothered to
Warrior. It's a great card.
Fix it since nobody plays Drytron.
To deal with it. And then the double trap Dust Shoot. Dust Shoot is, even though this card's at 3, you would think this is an auto include in the main deck. The biggest problem is Dust Shoot is really, really fucking good against Chaos Turbo, and it's really mid, if not awful, against a lot of other decks in the format, at least in my opinion. I feel like it's crazy to like say something like that about this card, which is like very ban worthy. But going up against Chaos specifically, you feel like it's almost like unlosable because then you know everything they have. And typically you can get rid of the best card in their hand if it's like Spy or whatever the composition of their hand is. That's also part of the reason why these these Chaos Turbo decks are playing stuff like Jar of Greed, the Upstarts, like Card Deaths, like just to sort of like mitigate the fact that Trap Dust Shoot is actually a card in the format. So it's crazy. You're only really siding this in for Chaos specifically. You could side it in for some other matchups, but against Chaos, it's really, really strong. So you want to see it definitely, especially if you are going first and can dictate that. So, excuse me, that's it for the main deck and side deck as well. And so I want to talk about my matchups. So
okay, let's try this.
Our first matchup was fucking crazy because we ended up playing against 3 people that were all playing burn decks. So they were playing like Lockdown Burn in GOAT. They were playing some sort of burn deck in Edison, which I don't even know what it was. And then I think Joseph had to play against like Final Countdown or something. So they were all stall decks. So this is
that's hilarious.
Is not the exact list. I'm going to show you some lists here. These are not like a card for card list of what these individuals were playing, but they played a lot of the same cards.
Yeah,
like turn 1, I was staring down
what
Level
people
Limit,
say they want to play GOAT. It's usually because they enjoy playing stall decks.
I saw Lava. I think I ripped a Lava Golem out of their hand with like a Reaper at one point. Stealth Bird. So Desk Koala, like a Cyber Jar at one point I popped so that didn't resolve. I saw a lot of the similar cards here. So the purpose of this deck is to just like use cards like Stealth Bird to flip it up and down every turn, which deals 1,000 damage to the opponent, and protect that with stuff like Messenger Piece, Level Limit, and you just win the game slowly by just burning them to death. You have Wave Motion Cannon for that. Nightmare Wheel does 500 damage every turn. Magic Cylinder is a huge burn card that's actually limited in this format. And so that's the objective here. And so I got bodied. Like Warrior does not play very well into this deck because they have so many things to slow the game down. Funny enough, I ended up boarding in the Kinetic Soldiers because it's a level 3 with 1350, so it actually hits under Level Limit and Messenger, which is like not something that every card in my deck can do. So I thought that was very funny. There was an instance, actually, I think it was the first game, I had Mind Control, and they set a Morphing Jar, and I stole the Morphing Jar and like looked at it, and my opponent was on like very few cards, but I was going to lose from the burn. So I thought, fuck it, let's just flip the jar, and if I get Heavy Storm, I'm going to be, like, really favored here. We didn't get any spell and trap removal. We ended up losing 0-2 to this deck because we just got crushed. There was a very interesting scenario where I had, like, a tribe-infecting virus. I was on low life. I could have attacked into a thing, and it's like, if it was, like, Stealth Bird or Desk Koala, I could pitch a card to pop it so they couldn't reset it. In the case of Stealth Bird, reset it to flip it to do the final damage to me, but they just needed to draw, like, any burn card to kill me, and then that exact scenario happened where I did that. It was Stealth Bird. I did that, but it was really bad. We got crushed by this matchup. It was rough. But thankfully, both Gage and Joseph won their matchups, and so we ended up winning that round. The second round, we played up against Control. Now, this is, again, not the exact card-for-card list our opponent was playing. They were playing more of a Monarch control list. They were playing stuff like Creature Swap. They had Zaborg main deck.
That's my fifth.
Several other differences as well. And the theory is with, like, Creature Swap, you can, like, give them a GOAT for their thing, or you can, like, give them a bad card like Sinister Serpent, a used-up Magician of Faith, something along those lines. Zaborg is a very strong card just because with Zaborg, you're actually able to just pop any monster. So that includes sets, right? So then being able to, like, go Tribute for Zaborg, pop a set Spy, Magician of Faith, etc. Zaborg's also a light. It's 2,400. Like, 2,400 is a big number in this format. Sometimes you just, like, can't hit over it. So I like the deck.
I don't get it.
I believe we 2-0'd in that instance. I felt so bad. There was an instance where the guy just, like, kept setting, like, card after card, and we had, like, Mystic Swords in level 2, Mind Control, Knock. Like, we just had every single answer to, like, anything that they would set, and it was brutal. It was really devastating. And then, of course, like, Reaper and Dawn did their thing as well. So we 2-0'd that, and then I forget who, I think Joseph won that round as well, so we were 2-0 at that point. Round 3, we played against Earth Aggro. Now, this was something that I had not, like, tested against, and this is not, like, the exact Earth Aggro list that we played. The Earth Aggro list that we played, they did play Giant Rat.
Oh, right, the bonfire that supposedly got
Lady, Goblin Attack Force. They were also playing Grand Marg the Rock Monarch, and because it is Earth, as a matter of fact. Grand Marg, there we go. This card beat my ass. Holy shit. Our opponent won the die roll. I only won one die roll the whole tournament, which was fantastic. Our opponent goes like T-set pass. I do something similar, I think. I think I like maybe set Reaper or something like that. They go like tribute Grandmarg pop, and then, or maybe they pop my back row. I don't remember. But there was this one moment, I think it was the third game, because I think he destroyed me game 1. Game 2, I like retaliated and like destroyed him. And then game 3, oh my God, Gage finished his match, so we were up 1. And then he's looking over at me and witnessed like an absolute murder. So the guy goes like, I have my hand. So this is one of the instances where my hand was all monsters. It was like, I opened both Gravekeeper Spies. Every time, for the record, every time I opened Gravekeeper Spy, I opened both of them. And that happened 4 times during the tournament. That was infuriating. So there was an instance my hand was like Spy, Reaper, and then 2 other monsters. I forget. So like our opponent goes like T-set pass. And I'm like, okay, it's an aggro deck. Like, we could get Grandmarged here, but, like, I need to, like, ward off just getting hit by, like, all these, like, big guys because they have, like, DD Assailants. Like, their guys are just, like, really big. So I wanted to just, like, buy time to find some back row to deal with it. So I go, like, set Spy pass. And I'm like, okay, if they have something to deal with Spy, I think Reaper's actually a lot better anyway, just because it's, like, also, like, unkillable by battle. And then we can sort of use that to tip the scales in our favor if we can wipe their board. So they go tribute for Grandmarg, pop the Spy. And I'm like, okay, this happened game 1, whatever. They attack for 24. So I'm like, okay, good. Now Reaper's probably going to stick because they don't have a way to deal with it. So I go like set Reaper pass. I forget how they dealt with this Reaper. I don't know if they attacked it and it was Reaper and they like smashing ground it in game 2. They did something to kill it. And I was like kind of angry by that, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. I have a second Spirit Reaper. I can't set Spy into Grandmarg because it's just going to run it over. So I'm like, okay, I have the second Spirit Reaper. They were like, they're out of ways to really deal with it for the most part. So I'm like, I'm feeling pretty good. So I set the second Reaper and then he goes summon DD Warrior Lady. And I'm just like, oh, I am cooked. This game is over. So then Warrior Lady takes out Reaper. Grandmarg gets in and then I keep drawing monsters. And I literally have no way to just out this board of like 3 guys. And I'm just like, I'm like, that was it. And Gage was just laughing his ass off. So I got absolutely demolished by this deck. But like I said, that's one of the issues where sometimes you draw all monsters and it's like the worst hand imaginable. You really just do not want that to happen, which is why you play such a low monster count. But fortunately, because Joseph's actually good at the game, he won. So we were 3-0, which was crazy. And the funniest part of this whole thing is I called Brittany, my wife, just because I just wanted to, check in with her, see how she's doing. She's like, oh, how you guys doing? And I said, oh, we're 3-0. And she's like, really? Like she was like fucking surprised or something. And I said, I say we're bad at the game, and don't get me wrong, we are, but I'm like, we're not that bad at the game. And so I told that to Gage and Joseph, and they're just laughing their asses off. So that was round 3. Round 4 is where shit hit the fan. So this was my first Chaos match, and this was actually a very close match. Game 1, I demolished him. I just got like really aggro with Reaper and Dawn, and he had no recourse. Game 2, he demolished me. I had an all-monster hand once again. He has like Spy, Flip Spy, some Berserkerilla does like 4,400, and like just, I have no way to like answer this, so he just kills. I can't kill a Berserkerilla, which is pathetic. So I lose game 2. Then game 3, we have this like grind game back and forth, and his hand is very weak. I have this Spirit Reaper that's like sort of getting in. His hand is at one point Card Destruction, Regeki Break, Solemn Judgment, BLS with no Chaos and Graveyard. So he thinks for a very long time because the Reaper is going to sort of eat him alive, but he doesn't really have an efficient way to deal with Spirit Reaper unless he like Regeki breaks it, but it feels so bad to Regeki break a Spirit Reaper, right? Especially when you have like really low cards. So he goes Card Destruction to dump his hand to try to find something new. So he draws 3 cards because Card Destruction minuses him. And then I think he like sets a back row or something, and I may have had an MST for it or something. So he has 2 cards in hand. So I still have this Reaper on the field, and I'm thinking to myself, this is insane, because for turn, I draw fucking Rhoda. So I'm like, oh, we're going in, because we can Rhoda for Dawn, rip both cards out of his hand. He's going to have nothing, and then we just, like, control the game from, like, we just hit him over a couple turns and just win. Like, there's no recourse here. So we do that line, and I'm like, this is it. Like, we got this. The 2 cards in this guy's hand, the 2 cards in his hand are Night Assailant, Magician of Faith. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Night Assailant, because this card works differently now than it did before. Night Assailant, when it's sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can target a flip effect monster and add it to your hand. So, I attack with both. The first card I hit out of his hand is Magician of Faith. The second one is Night Assailant, which adds back the Magician of Faith. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that was a 50-50 on how that was going to go. He had no other flips in the grave, so Knight Assailant wouldn't have had a target if we hit Knight Assailant first. And you're thinking to yourself, like, how bad could it be, right? I mean, I think he had maybe like 1 or 2 relevant spells in grave, but nothing. I don't think he had Trinity or anything, if I recall. So it wasn't anything like backbreaking. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, like how much could that matter, right? That they add the fucking card back off of Knight Assailant. They top deck Tribe Infecting Virus, summon Tribe, pitch them off, blow up my Dawn, and just attack my Reaper for 13. I'm on low life at this point, and this is the correct move, because next turn he can draw a card, just pitch it, pop Reaper, and just get in if I have no other monsters. I'm pretty sure I draw like a fucking Dust Tornado or a Trap Dust Shoot when he has like no cards in hand or something like that. So I can't out this fucking Tribe. So then I just put Reaper to defense. Next turn he draws, pitches, and just attacks me for 16. If I take another 16, I'm dead. Like I was on like 4K or something like that because of just the way the game had been playing out. I draw like another card that's useless. I think it was like Heavy or something. And that was it. And I lost. And I was like, I cannot believe it came down to that 50-50 because having Tribe with no monster, like, yeah, sure, Tribe could have, I mean, you could have just normal, or no card to pitch, rather. You could still go Tribe attack into Donzalug, and, like, I guess you could have still technically done the same line, but, like, Tribe into Dawn, and then not get the damage. No, I guess, like, yeah, because you're only getting 200 from the Dawn, so it would have bought me one more turn.
Can't be targeted.
I think, but man, that was such a backbreaking top deck that it was Tribe. That was such an insane card. So
I'm just
the
the deadest man to ever be dead.
I think the still lost regardless because they could have popped Spirit Reaper next turn anyway. But man, was that backbreaking. So we lost that one, and then
it is ridiculous how dead I am.
So at this point we were 3-1. And then we played 2 mirrors for rounds 5 and 6. So I played against the mirror. I got very, very aggressive at one point where I had this Reaper trying to get in. I think I Solemn Judgmented like an Exiled Force just to get him on like no cards. And that's when like the Ring of Destruction Judgment thing happened because my life was super low. So that sucked. But so we ended up losing that one. I think Joseph won his round and then Gage lost his round. So we were 3-2. At this point, there's no way we can top because no X2s top the entire thing. If you don't know, Ultimate Time Wizard is top 8. And so it is very difficult to get in with only X2 because if you factor in draws, like X11s will get in over that. So it's very tough to top at that point. But the nice thing is there's only one more round remaining, so we thought to ourselves, you know what? Let's just go ahead and play out the last one. So we did. It was another mirror, and this was actually fantastic. I actually played against Rex Mendoza, which is someone who played Gravekeeper Burn during Edison format, and I played his deck in an episode of History of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I remember sitting across from him like, your name sounds so familiar, and he told me the whole thing, and I was like, that's fucking crazy. So it's cool to like meet people who played like way back in the day, and like decks that we've played in series that we've done on the channel, right? It's funny because he was the GOAT player because he would have preferred to play Edison. So we played another Warrior mirror,
something I could have done here.
It was a solid set. We had
there was something I could have done there.
We had a bunch of people watching us. It was a lot of fun, and a lot of really good, just really interesting micro interactions that happened. That's
never mind. Abyss Dweller.
What I read was a set spy because I didn't want him to flip it. Just fantastic game overall. I ended up taking it, which I felt like the fucking dead weight this entire time.
Recourse.
I kept losing. But
I won. A really bad hand, and they drew just the best hand.
His first loss of the event.
It happens.
Even though no X2s popped, it sucks that the one time I did actually, or the one of the few times I did actually win, it didn't end up mattering, which is brutal. Gage played an absolute slog of a match and lost in a very unfortunate way, but.
Sometimes you win overall, because the opponent just drew better, and sometimes you lose.
Any other way. Obviously, we would have liked to like make it to day 2, but we only played 6 rounds because there were so few teams that entered the entire event. Which was kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. As someone who's just getting older, it was nice that we got to show up at 11 and then leave at 6. And so we sort of had like the whole morning and the whole evening still ahead of us, which was enjoyable for anyone who goes to events. Sometimes you're there at like 8 a.m. and you don't get out till like 10 p.m., right? So you're there for like 14 plus hours. At one point, the Ultimate Time Wizard rounds actually surpassed the main event because there's so fewer people playing that we're able to like get through our rounds.
I think I should just go back to 40
we were just laughing that we were like done with round 6 when they were still in like round 5 of the main event. That was hilarious. But I would highly recommend if like this older style of Yu-Gi-Oh interests you. I hope that maybe you learned something from watching this video. I still love like playing these old formats, even though like they're not everyone's cup of tea. But for me, it's nostalgic, and just being able to slam some of these old cards that I played when I was a literal child. there's something special about it. And I think a lot of the older Yugi boomers really enjoy that as well. So, like I said, if you learned something, fantastic. If you enjoyed just hearing about the absolute train wreck of our event, I hope you enjoyed that as well. And yeah, just thanks so much for watching. This is something we haven't done in quite a bit, and I figured you guys might enjoy something a little bit different that we've done. It's not like a series or something, right? So thank you again so much for watching, for everything. You guys are awesome, and we'll see you next time.